My name is Kara Latham, and I work for Sacramento Public Library. I'd like to show you how to make a fidget blanket. One of the great things about fidget blankets is they can be made from almost any junk drawer and piece of old clothing that you have in your house. Although you can, of course, buy new fabric and go and collect adorable little pieces to put on them, they actually make a lot more fun to pull things out of your drawer and utilize what you already have. You can come up with some remarkably creative ways of putting together a fidget blanket. It takes two pieces of fabric. One can be felt, it could be canvas, it can be any type of fabric really. In fact, the nicer the feel on it is, the better. So using an old piece of satin or an old baby blanket would be a couple options that you could use if it's nice and soft to the hand, because fidget blankets are all about the fingers, they're all about your hands. A lot of elderly people and people with different challenges need something to do with their fingers and with their hands to stop the agitation. For those of you who remember the good old stress ball that used to be offered to kids to help them focus, the fidget blanket's really a more involved and far more attractive version of that. So let's get started. A few things that you'll need to make a fidget blanket, believe it or not, is not a sewing machine, although it's certainly useful. If you have a needle and thread, you're able to do this by hand. And I might point out that it's a great family project if you'd like to teach your children how to sew or make something for an elder in your family. So all of this can be done by hand, although what I will show you today will have a sewing machine both for ease and for speed in this case. So the group of items that I have today, I found, or given to me actually, but you can find inspiration on the web with many different examples of previously made fidget blankets to give you a great idea about how you can put yours together. Really, your creativity is endless. So the items that I was given today were beads and a piece of ribbon. You remember from childhood how those go from piece to piece so that they get threaded on and can be pushed back and forth. And I've knotted the two edges of the ribbon. A zipper, two pieces of additional fabric besides the navy blue fabric that is 18 inches by about 12 or 24 inches. Again, very flexible. A group of wooden circles make a nice clicking sound, and you can sort of play with them with your hand. A clasp that could have been cut off from an old bag or possibly a fanny pack. And a piece of Velcro that makes a nice ripping sound when it's pulled back and forth on that. And then our favorite buttons. Buttons that are all over the place. Buttons that have fallen off of shirts, fallen off of pants, stray buttons that you find. This is a great place to use extra buttons. One old shoelace, in this case new shoelace, and some grommets for weaving and threading. After you have these items, you'll need a pair of scissors, your needle, if you're going to hand sew, and even if you're not, because the buttons are probably easier to get on with the needle than they are with the sewing machine. A couple pins if you'd like to use pins to set your items, but again, you don't have to. And then you start to lay out. I was given, this fidget blanket will be in 3 pieces. It has this navy fabric on top. They included some batting, which is optional, and then a felt backing, like I mentioned, satin, felt, canvas, something that has a different feel to it than your top, because your hand will feel the difference. And because I'm me, I had to trim the batting, which we'll see at the end, so that I can roll the edges for the I'm going to make a little button flower with the extra batting, waste not, want not, for the blanket. It'll give one more thing also for them to rub against with their fingers. Batting's really wonderful for that rubbing part. After you have all your items, decide where you want to put them. So take your items onto your piece of fabric and decide where you want to place them. And this will be completely individualized by you with what you're going to do. So I have the navy fabric that I was given, and I've got purple and green, basically. I have 2 little squares of purple printed fabric, which I've just placed in the squares. I decided to cut out a piece of my purple fabric to use for the Velcro rip and put it over there. I chose to put my buckle under the 2 sides of the purple fabric. My circle's up here in the corner, and I think I'll run the grommets and the shoelace down here on the bottom. There's a nice space for it, and I think I'll put the beads right there in the middle, and that'll leave a tiny place for my ribbon flower with the batting. For the next few minutes, I'm going to be sewing on the machine with the items that I have here. I will end up hand sewing the grommets, which you'll see me do as I go along, and I'll end up hand sewing that little ribbon, but the rest of it will be able to be put on by the machine. So let's get sewing. All right, now that you've assembled the top of your fidget blanket, here's what mine ended up looking like. Whoops, there go my buttons. You're ready to put it together. So I have the top part that we've just sewn all the bits and pieces to. I still have my 3 extra buttons because I'm going to use that to anchor my pieces together. And here's my backing. In this case, we do have a piece of batting in between, but it is completely unnecessary if you don't have it or don't want to use it. Just makes it a little puffier. If you notice, if you do use batting, you want to cut it in so that it's not bulking up your edges. So I've cut it in about 1.5 inches on each side so that it won't interfere when I lay this out. Now I'm going to lay my top out, and I will be matching my edges to the backing. Because I'm going to do a rolled edge on this, I will wind up having a tiny edge of my backing, the blue felt, visible. I'll show you here in just a second. Just a little bit of extra. And what I'm going to do is simply take an edge, and I'm going to roll it over and stitch it down. This way it gives a nice little piece of felt on the corners, again for rubbing, for texture, and then it will anchor it down so that nothing will move around. This works out well also if your fabrics are different. It adds a little more color, and it can allow you to use pieces that aren't matching to get the same result. So I'm just going to lay it over, and I think because I used a zigzag on my zipper and in a couple other places, I think I'll zigzag my edges. I'm also, in my case, I'm going to miter the corners, and what that means is I'm going to, on the corner, I'm going to fold the corner down so that it's flat. And then when I roll this side and this side, it'll make a new corner without a raw edge on it. As I mentioned before, this entire blanket can be made by hand sewing, and it does make a wonderful family project or a community All right, well, there you go. That's how to make a fidget blanket. I hope you take the chance and the opportunity to make one for a loved one or to give away to a community member who's in need. Here's my finished product. You'll see that there are a couple extra buttons that I've tagged on. I think we all have buttons. So I ended up putting just a couple extra ones. They're so nice to be able to run your fingers through them. And you can often get a whole bucket of them for just $1 over at the secondhand stores. So this one has the button, a nice Velcro patch that makes a nice noise on it. We have the wooden circles for fiddling, the buckle to go in and out. We have some beads on a satiny ribbon that can go back and forth, and the ribbon feels really nice on your hands. There's a little bit of a tie your shoe moment over here with the grommets and the shoelace, and then the zipper back and forth. Along with that, the back of it is nice and felty, and it's bright and cheery, and it's just about the width of a lap. Just goes over your thighs just a little bit on the side of your legs. So I hope you do, and thank you for watching. Goodbye.